First tonight at 11, results from 16 states coming in as Super Tuesday 2024 wraps up. The polls in California just closing. Voters in Alaska have one more hour to cast their ballots. The election still underway. The primary night election still underway in one state, or the primary results election, and the outcome, though, is already clear.
Absolutely. Former President Donald Trump leading in all the Super Tuesday states, and moments ago he declared victory at Mar-a-Lago.
They call it Super Tuesday for a reason. This is a big one. And they tell me, the pundits and otherwise, that there's never been one like this. There's never been anything so conclusive. This was an amazing night, an amazing day. It's been an incredible period of time in our country's history. It's been sad and so much.
And of course, we have team coverage tonight. Scripps News reporter Stephanie Liebergen is monitoring the results from a polling site in Northern Virginia.
But first on this night, where both Mr. Trump and President Biden are this close to officially wrapping up enough delegates to take them into the summer conventions, our Megan McRoberts live at Mar-a-Lago with more what the former president is saying. Megan?
Good evening, Michael. Yes, the former president, Donald Trump, walking into a room of supporters, a large room of supporters, giving him a round of applause, chanting his name, chanting USA before, as you just heard moments ago, as he called this Super Tuesday both an amazing day and an amazing night. He opened that speech talking about continuing the momentum of this campaign, wanting to unify the Republican Party, but quickly pivoting to blasting the last 3 years under the Biden administration, criticizing decisions made surrounding things like the wars in Ukraine and in Israel, inflation, our international relations, and then pivoting to his own campaign talking points that he's been drilling in over and over again, such as energy independence, building our worldwide reputation, and bringing down inflation. But much of his speech tonight really did focus on one of his top talking points, what is considered one of the more important issues for voters this year, border security. Here's what he had to say to this crowd.
The things that are happening now are unthinkable, and they're unthinkable at the border. We have millions of people invading our country. This is an invasion. This is the worst invasion probably. We've never had anything like it. No.
So there was nothing mentioned in his speech tonight about Nikki Haley, but we can say earlier in the night, campaign officials did say that even in the worst case scenario for Trump tonight, they still saw no path forward for Nikki Haley beyond tonight. So the campaign's still confident that even as early as next week, Trump could clinch that official GOP nomination. So really the theme of tonight here, a lot of confidence, a lot of excitement, a lot of celebration tonight as we wrap up this Super Tuesday here at Mar-a-Lago. Reporting live, I'm Megan McRoberts. Back to you.
Megan, thank you.
Former president making significant gains in his delegate count tonight. This is a look at the latest tally from the NBC News decision desk. So far, Mr. Trump has won every state. However, NBC just projected former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley will win in Vermont. 1,215 delegates are needed to win the Republican nomination.
And given the numbers right now, that is likely to happen next week or the next for Mr. Trump. Despite the projected win in New England, Nikki Haley's campaign facing a virtually insurmountable path forward tonight.
Scripps News reporter Stephanie Liebergen is in Alexandria, Virginia, breaking down voter reaction to those results.
With 16 states and one territory weighing in on their preferred presidential candidate today, Super Tuesday looks to be a very good day for the current and former president. Let's start on the Democratic side, where we didn't see any surprises. President Joe Biden has been declared the winner in most states at poll closing time or shortly thereafter. On the Republican side, it's former President Donald Trump that has been taking all of the statewide wins thus far, but it's the delegate split that could be interesting. In some states, former President Trump could sweep all of that state's delegates if he wins 50% or more of the vote. Nikki Haley has been campaigning hard in Super Tuesday states, especially ones with an open primary, like here in Virginia. Haley was banking on independents or Democrats crossing over to support her today. And there were some voters in Virginia that did just that, even though they have no intention of supporting Nikki Haley in November.
She is too conservative for my taste. I think that she has shown the most aggressive stance to trying to stop Donald Trump, and she deserves support for that.
Our partners at DDHQ did some exit polling of Super Tuesday's voters, and on the Republican side, immigration was by far the most important issue for voters weighing in today. On the Democratic side, it was reproductive rights, not quite as strong of a margin, but still clearly the most important issue for voters picking that Democratic ballot today. And those exit polling results track with what voters on the ground in Virginia told Scripps News.
The economy, the future of the country. We've got a whole lot of nonsense and a lot of people, and the invasion of the federal bureaucracy into the lives of private citizens.
Now, getting back to that delegate count on the Republican side, former President Trump needs about 1,000 more delegates in order for him to be considered the presumptive Republican nominee. He won't be able to get enough just with his Super Tuesday votes and the other votes that have already happened in earlier primary states. There are about 860 delegates up for grabs on Super Tuesday, so the former president certainly could get much closer to getting that presumptive nominee title and getting one step closer to potentially getting back in the White House. Stephanie Liebergen, Scripps News, Alexandria, Virginia.
A lot of numbers flying around tonight. The bottom line is this: the Biden-Trump rematch that has long seemed inevitable after this night's Super Tuesday is indeed that. That's what's teed up for this fall. Joining me now, longtime WPTV political analyst Brian Crowley. And Brian, in Florida, and we'll have our primary on March 19th. That could seal the deal for the former president and/or for President Biden. Will the one-time mentor, later nemesis of Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, be a big endorser, a big backer of his in Florida publicly? How do you see that playing out?
Well, I think we got a hint tonight. I mean, Governor DeSantis was not at Mar-a-Lago to help the former president celebrate his big win on Super Tuesday. And, you know, their rivalry is more than political. It's very, very personal. And it's going to be very interesting in the weeks and the months ahead to see whether or not Ron DeSantis actively campaigns for Donald Trump, or if Donald Trump's even interested in having Ron DeSantis help out. 2
impeachments, 4 criminal indictments would have crushed a politician of any other generation, but not Donald Trump. Why, Brian?
Well, you know, there's nothing they don't already know about Donald Trump. They've known it since 2016. People have already just accept that this is the personality that Donald Trump is. And there's a lot of dislike for the policies among Republicans, for the policies that the Democrats espouse. So really, they don't feel like they've got anywhere else to go for somebody who can actually, they believe, defeat Joe Biden.
What does he have to do to try and garner independent votes and others, the former president, that is? And then a quick question about Joe Biden.
You know, I think one of the things that Donald Trump needs to do is to, and his advisors are telling him this, that he needs to look more forward and stop talking about past grievances like he was doing during much of his speech this evening.
Brian, quickly about the president. He'll have a chance to make his own rebuttal of sorts in his State of the Union address on Thursday. What does he have to prove on Thursday? What will people be looking for, and talk about the biggest obstacles ahead for the sitting president?
Well, Thursday is absolutely the start of his campaign for re-election. He's going to have to sound strong. He's going to have to present policies that talk about the future and not about the past. And he's going to have to show a clear distinction between him and Donald Trump.
And the president tonight in remarks saying it is a chance for voters to show they're ready to fight back, quoting here, against Donald Trump's extreme plan to take us backwards, a sense of some of the language you'll be hearing all the way in the run-up to Election Day. Florida's primary, March 19th. Brian, thanks as always. Early voting starts Saturday, runs through the 16th. Results, of course, throughout this night and 2 weeks from tonight. News Channel 5 at 11.